My name is Jess White, and I'm CEO of Cassette agency. Thinking about my story of mental health, it actually goes back to when I was 26, and I was really fortunate to be in a very senior marketing role. I was the head of marketing for an ASX listed company, and it was at that point when I actually realised for the first time that I actually had anxiety and that I was suffering from some panic attacks and things like that. I was really young in that role, but regardless of my age, there just wasn't a support system in the company to be able to actually support what I was going through and what I was feeling, and decided to leave the company and decided to move out of big corporate and actually move into a more independent, smaller company. And a big part of me wanting to start building Cassette into the agency that it is today was about being able to create a space that actually could help people and provide a really positive and healthy environment for people to work within. So I now have an agency of just under 50 in the team across Melbourne, Sydney, New Zealand, and mental health has always been a really big priority. The difference I think for me is it's not about trying to not have mental health issues in your business, because humans are humans, and that absolutely happens. And also we work in advertising, and it's actually known as one of the most stressful industries that you can actually choose to work in. So for us, it's not about trying to get rid of mental health problems, it's actually about really embracing that as a reality in both our work lives and our personal lives, but having the tools to be able to actually navigate the journey, because it does change a lot as you go through the different seasons of your life. It changes a lot as well. I've gone from being that 26-year-old to then, being completely free in my 30s and doing whatever I wanted, to now being a mum of 2 little babies. And, the seasons of your life change and the requirements change there as well. For us at Cassette, we look at how we can kind of create a whole lot of different tools and support around people from a mental health perspective. Whether that be, talking about it really openly. We create spaces within our offices for people to actually have time and space if they're feeling overwhelmed or needing to have some quiet space. So we've got the meditation room, as people call it, which is frequently used. And there's just no stigma around it either. And I think that's really, really important. That's certainly something I saw in some larger corporates, is you get a lot of stigma around that piece, and we really try and just make that really acceptable and really just part of life. And then I obviously met Ash and Dean, and they told me about Mind, their app. And for us, that was just an immediate yes, because for us, again, it's not about fixing the problem, it's about giving the team the tools to actually be able to navigate their own journeys. And we really feel that that's what Mind does for our team, and that's actually what we've seen in practice for the team all the time. It's about giving them a toolbox that they can actually use if they haven't had the ability to build that toolbox for themselves throughout their lives. And I've got 21-year-olds and up to 55-year-olds. So, and different people have had opportunities to build different levels of skills and coping mechanisms throughout their lives. And so I think for us, to have that tool that's literally in their pockets that empowers them to be able to take control of how they're feeling is really, really important. And then you don't have any of that kind of codependency on a business to solve the problems. It's instead empowering them to actually be able to help them, not necessarily solve, but help their way through those problems as well. So for us, it was just an absolute no-brainer, and we're really excited to be one of the partners.
Just like for context, can you share what was happening at 26 that you realised that things weren't going right? What did that look, feel like? What was your support system like? Also, obviously you mentioned your work, but outside of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I had made the decision, but obviously been offered the opportunity to move up to Sydney. So I was living up there on my own, in my own apartment, and at 26 that was a pretty big jump to make. And I think it was an accumulation of the pressure of the role. It was a really high pressure role for my age and level of experience, and that combining with the loneliness of living in a whole new city on your own as well. I just started to find that I was having constant levels of anxiety throughout the day, being really worried about conversations on what people thought, people's perceptions of me and how I was performing. So real kind of sensitivities around that. And then a couple of times I did actually have panic attacks where I was like, this is something I actually just can't cope with myself. So I think for me that was, I'd always probably been someone who was driven and confident and had always kind of excelled in most of the things that I put my mind to. And so then to be in a role where I felt like I wasn't performing and I was struggling, that was a really hard kind of place to be. And I think that certainly compounded to the level of anxiety and panic I was having.
These days to what you did back then, because on paper it would kind of look very similar.
It is still high pressure. Yeah, I still feel, I always say I don't have a busy life, I have a full life. And that's how I really like to frame it in my mind. And I actually think that's a key first kind of step in your toolbox, is the frame with which you choose to look at your life. You know, you can easily drop into victim, you can easily drop into I'm just constantly busy and overwhelmed. But I've chosen the life that I have, which is a full life. And I do a lot of things, and I've chosen, you know, to be a mum and wife and a friend, and obviously a business owner as well. My toolbox is big. Like I have a lot of tools. I can't use them as much as I used to when I had before kids. So the time to use the toolbox is slightly less these days than 2 little ones. But that involves, I have a counsellor who is kind of part Reiki and then part psychologist counsellor as well, who I've been with for 14 years. And I see her as regularly as is needed. So sometimes during harder seasons that can be like weekly, other times it's always virtual, and other times it could be monthly. But she's always been there as a coach for me in both family and in work as well. I practice meditation. I, you know, when I can, get to yoga and do some of those things as well. And yeah, I think for me it's about making sure that I'm also balancing, you know, being the mum, and when I'm being a mum, I'm being as present a mum as I can be, and then finding time just to be a friend and, you know, to go out with girlfriends and just be me that's not mum at that point in time. And then obviously creating that space for me to be CEO of Cassette as well, and the work that I do. So kind of do have different identities at this season of your life, and it's important to carve out enough space for each one of those identities as well.
Oh, amazing.